So Kimby, I'll start with you. There's several questions about the intersection between lipedema and lymphedema. And I wonder if you could elaborate on that a little bit and just say what your experience has been about that connection.
Sure, I knew that question was going to come up. I see it in my practice all the time, and for some people it's really hard to tell if it's lipedema or lymphedema. There's a commercial that I was really glad to see, or an ad that was up here that's been playing throughout the weekend that explains a little bit about that usually lipedema, which is fat, a different presentation of fat is in just the limbs and on both sides. And in my practice, I really often see it combined with lymphedema. It'll show up after a surgery or an injury to a joint, and then somebody will develop lymphedema. The fluids get stuck in that system, and then lipedema or lipedema will subsequently result, or lipolymphedema as it's often called as well. So they coexist. And lymphatic drainage, massage, and all of the same treatments for lymphedema are effective and helpful for lipedema.
Great, thank you so much. So Jennifer, there are a couple of questions about advocating for children in school and help with developing 504 plans and things like that, and interacting with sort of resistant school systems. Can you address that?
Okay. I mean, I think the first thing to say is that it is your legal right for your child to be able to access the full extent of your school and the full extent of their education. So you're right in pushing for that. When kids come see us in our clinic, we write a letter, we do a full report, and we write a letter for the school so that we can give them an idea of some things to take away and use. If you don't have access to a clinic like we have, I know on the EDS website you have a whole section on recommendations for schools.
Yes.
And I've looked at that and I found that really useful. I think that you might be able to look in there and see if maybe sharing that with your school, taking some of the tips from there and talking to the school about it. But remind the school that it is your child's legal right to have access to their education, and you need to push for your child and advocate for them, absolutely.
Great, thank you. So this is an interesting question, Kimby, that someone is asking about if tattoos affect the lymph system, and if there are any long-term concerns for people with HEDS and MCAS, even if people don't react to the inks immediately.
So my husband's a tattoo artist, and my daughter is extremely hypermobile, and because she gets free tattoos, she's covered in tattoos. And when she gets sick, which she's also really prone to strep, she has tonsil stones, and she's 24 now, but when she gets sick, all of her tattoos raise, like Braille tattoos. And so and she has mast cell activation. So yeah, there's an extreme effect with hypermobility and tattoos. I have tattoos. I'm not extremely hypermobile. My kid says she doesn't care because the tattoos are more important to her than whether or not she has a little flare up in her skin. But yes, there's studies done that I can't quote right now that some of the lymphatic fluid in the areas of tattoos are colored. So if you're gonna get tattoos and you're hypermobile, make absolutely 100,000% certain that you're going to a tattoo artist who uses really high quality inks, because there's crappy inks out there and there's high quality inks. So my husband actually in his practice sort of caters to hypermobility, and he definitely works to that. So.
Okay.
Interesting question.
Great.
Thanks.
Well suited to answer that question. Amazing. Okay. Jennifer, there's a question here about neurodivergent kids and helping neurodivergent kids who struggle with interoception and focus, and are there tips for helping them to be able to learn these things and to be more body aware and communicate what they're feeling?
Sure. I mean, occupational therapy is great for that. And, I think most of our neurodivergent kids do get occupational therapy, so I would definitely speak to your occupational therapist about that. In terms of like understanding their position in space and that sort of thing, that the compression garments can work really well. There's a lot of sensory techniques you can use, like brushing and things on the skin. I guess in terms of, like that more interoceptive, what the OTs that I work with would say is, talk to them about it, ask them, do you need the bathroom? And are you feeling, and then describe the sensations maybe they would feel if they need the bathroom. Or talk to them about when they're hungry and how that impacts their body. Even if they're neurodivergent, you can talk to them. Think about it as in a way of you're leading them, you're still teaching them, you're guiding them. I think, there is a challenge when you have children that are not able to comprehend things as well, or who have impulsive behaviors, and it's really hard to parent these children, and I do feel for the families, but I guess you just have to model and try your best to just keep talking, keep the conversation going.
All right.
I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Kimby, there are quite a few questions about compression garments. Mm-hmm. What types of compression garments? What strength of compression? Or do you have specific brands that you recommend? Could you just elaborate a little bit more about thinking about those things in treatment of lymphedema?
Absolutely. That is one of the things that my web designer and I are working on my website. I will have a resource page within the next few weeks. One thing about compression garments, and they've been mentioned with sensory stuff as well, and proprioception, they have to be comfortable though. If you're not comfortable in them, you're not going to wear them, and therefore they can't do the job. So they do have to be comfortable. For example, I have a little lymphedema in this arm, and I have the compression garment that I was fit for on this arm. I won't wear. It's too much. My shoulder doesn't feel like it's able to move. I don't have the freedom I need. So I went one size up, and it still works. It still controls the lymphedema, but I wouldn't wear the tighter one. So it's really actually just as important to make sure it's comfortable and that you'll wear it. I do have some brands I prefer, which I'll put on my website. I don't have them on the top of my brain right now, but it just really depends on what works for you. You can get them fitted by, in my area, we have medical supply stores that you can just walk in and they'll fit you for your garments, even if you're not purchasing them there. I think they're fantastic for joints that sublux frequently. We have a lot of lymph right behind the knee, so for knees that go all the time, having some good compression stockings sometimes can really help with moving that lymph out of that joint, so it's got a little bit more freedom of movement of the tissues as well. Same with ankles. So that will be on my website. I apologize that it's not there now, but I just redid my site, so.
Work in progress.
Exactly.
That's great. There's a question here about when should parents start thinking about getting medical care for children who are hypermobile and complaining about pain? Like what are some signs that you would look out for, and when would you encourage people to start looking for medical assistance?
In terms of physician or?
Yeah, when should they go to a doctor?
When should they go to a doctor? Yeah, I think this is one of the big questions. And what doctor should they go see? And yeah, I know in this area there isn't really one doctor who will see these children and diagnose them. I talk to pediatricians a lot. I always think of them as being their first line of defense. And if your child is having pain on a regular basis, or injuring themselves on a regular basis, or has had an acute injury, then those are the times to go to the doctor for sure. If you're hypermobile and you think your child might be hypermobile, it's about, do they need something? I guess I'm of the ilk of like, if there isn't a problem, do we need to fix it? Like, yes, they're hypermobile. You know what to do. You have the skills and the concepts to help with your child until there's a problem. If you live in an area where there's a center of excellence and you can take them to see therapists, I mean, we encourage doctors, pediatricians to send us their children that are in the greater Philly and New Jersey area sooner than later. Usually we like to see them around, late primary schools. Oftentimes we don't see them till, they're sort of 9, 10 and up. I think with girls, what we find is that when they hit puberty, things get a lot worse. Converse with boys, testosterone tightens things up. So I guess it depends on what's going on with your child. If your kid has pain and they're having problems and you think that you need some advice on how to help that, then absolutely go to your doctor. Find a physical therapist in your area, hopefully someone who knows how to work with children, and explain to them about the hypermobility.
Yeah.
I wish
I
we had
agree
more
with
people
that
out there.
100%. Yes.
Now, I did want to add as well, I thought a little bit more about the question about neurodiversity. And, I think when we have kids that have a hard time understanding these things, as parents, we have to be more aware of their needs. And you are aware of your neurodivergent child's needs. You know when they're hungry, when they're thirsty, when they need, and it's just having the faith that you know and that you can help them to know as well and keep talking about it, like I said before.
Well, and finding advocates within the school too.
Yeah.
A counselor or a teacher. That was really critical with my daughter in school, was finding an advocate who was like, okay, you need some extra, you need to not be going up the stairs. You need some extra stuff. Mm-hmm. That advocate really helped us get her through high school and middle school.
So Kimby, there's a couple questions here about the glymphatic system. Mm-hmm. And one person asked about whether the glymphatic system can explain swelling at the base of the skull and upper cervical instability. And there's another question about the contribution to dementia.
So the contribution to dementia, I'm going to start there, is huge. So there's all kinds, and I'm one of those people that for years I thought it was a badge of honor to be able to get by on 5 hours sleep because I worked and raised kids and had foster kids and animals, and I was like, I'm fine, I can do all of this. Come to find out, people like me who didn't used to sleep a lot have a higher incidence of dementia because of the amylase that is building up in the brain. And the glymphatic system is much more active during rest. There's been studies done that are incredible. In my class on lymph drainage, I showed the MRIs of this. The brain is so much more actively releasing and draining during sleep that, yes, there's a huge connection between the glymphatic system and dementia. It almost, when I started studying it, I thought, oh my God, all we have to do is get people to sleep better and get lymphatic drainage and clear this system out, and maybe we can help that. What was the first question?
Craniocervical instability and swelling at the base of the skull.
Well, I don't have any studies to substantiate that. However, the pathway from the brain drainage is behind the ears and at the occipital ridge. So if you combine that drainage happening from within the brain with cervical instability that's already existing, and perhaps inflammation in the throat from TMJ or chronic illness, then I feel like absolutely they could feed off of each other. Yeah.
Thank you. So Jennifer, there's a question about children wearing backpacks if they have scoliosis, mm-hmm. and the imbalance that is exacerbated then with the weight of the backpack, and whether you have any suggestions about how to improve that balance or improve the ergonomics for a child with scoliosis.
couple things come to mind. And I did mention that the backpack shouldn't be more than 10% of their body weight. And if they have a scoliosis, for sure it shouldn't be. So if you're keeping the weight lower like that, that will definitely take some of the strain off. Some backpacks have a waist option where you can pull it across the waist. And what that does is that takes some of the weight off of your shoulders and puts it more onto your pelvis, which is much stronger and more stable. So look for that kind of an option. We do sometimes recommend rolling backpacks, although the teens don't love to,
They
don't want to
them.
look different,
Yes.
right? So I would say get the backpack with the waistband. Also with the rolling backpacks, you have to be cautious if you have hypermobile shoulders and then you're yanking and could get caught. So those would be my options, but you know, it's really keeping the weight of the backpack minimal and finding other strategies for having, you know, the books, you know, in this, talk to your kids. My kids never go to their locker. They're like, I'm never near it. If you have a kid who needs to have a light backpack, you need to have a conversation with the school. They need to have multiple lockers because my kid needs to use his locker.
Yeah.
You can't carry their coat and all the things all day long around the school. So those sorts of things I would say would be your best options.
Yeah. So Kimmy, you just mentioned inflammation and infectious diseases, and there's a question about whether a person who's had tonsillectomy, adenoidectomy, appendectomy, do they need to take any extra steps to remain healthy and in terms of the lymphatic system?
The short answer is yes. If you have a compromised lymphatic system, certainly your lymph system, we have about 700 lymph nodes. We have lymph vessels through the whole body. Those vessels and nodes are similar to like a chain of pearls. You've got a vessel that leads to a node that goes to a vessel that goes to a node, and the pathway takes it back to the heart. If there's any compromise anywhere in the system, then your lymph system already has areas of struggle. So yeah, I would say that those of us, I don't have an appendix, I don't have this quadrant of lymph nodes, I don't have an omentum, I don't have tonsils, I don't have adenoids. I feel like I struggle more with illness because of that. And you know, it's impossible to actually connect those dots because if you don't have them, you didn't get to experience life with them, you know. But yes, I think absolutely we need to take precautions and learning self-lymphatic drainage. Every month I volunteer with the Cancer Foundation in our town and I do community classes to teach people self-lymphatic drainage. I think it's critical. My classes are packed when I do this. And I just feel like it's really important to learn how to do this yourself, even if you're spending 5 or 10 minutes just draining your own lymph daily. I think it can help, especially those of us who have compromise. Absolutely. And I think hypermobility is a bit of compromise. I hate to say it because we don't want to have more compromise, but absolutely.
Okay, unfortunately, we're at the end of our time. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience with us. It's really been a great session. Thank you all for your attention. And we're going to move into our movement snack now. So if we can clear out the area in front of the stage here and everyone make room for the people who will be moving with that movement snack. Thanks so much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.